Today is December 15th, 2012. Please state your name and occupation.
Yes, my name is Sam Neal, and I'm retired.
Can you give a brief description about what you remember of the day, December 15th, 1967?
Well, at that particular time, I was working for the Huntington Herald Dispatch as a reporter, and the day was like any other bleak December day. Went to work, wasn't expecting anything spectacular, and got a call from somebody here in Gallipolis, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember who called me, and said, the Silver Bridge fell. And I said, you mean the Shadle Bridge? And they said, no, the Silver Bridge across the Ohio River. And I said, no, you mean a section of the Silver Bridge fell into the river? He said, no, the whole damn bridge fell. And I said, are you sure? He said, I'm absolutely positive. So I told my editor what I'd gotten on the phone, made a call to confirm it, and he sent me and a photographer up the Ohio side, and sent another reporter and a photographer up the West Virginia side to Point Pleasant to cover the tragedy from both sides. So, of course, by the time I got up here, it was dark. The bridge had already fallen, of course, by then. And I remember coming through Gallipolis on Old Route 7, and as you come up through Eastern Avenue to what was called Upper River Road at the time, there was a point, as you come around the bend, you could see the Silver Bridge. Well, there was just a big hole in the sky. Nothing was there. And I told my photographer who was riding with me, I said, the bridge is gone. I mean, it's supposed to be right there. You should be able to see it now, and you can't. So we came on up the road, and that's when we covered the tragedy.
So being a journalist, getting on site of the Silver Bridge, what was your feelings standing there looking at this horrible tragedy?
Well, a lot of things go through your mind at the time. A lot of facts and figures of when was the bridge built, how many people were on it, are there any survivors, how many people died. These are questions that you know are going to have to be answered, and so all of them start running through your mind basically at the same time. The next thing is logistics. How do you get to it? Remember, at the time, there were no cell phones. You didn't have instant communication back and forth, and so you think of the logistical problems of how do you get the film, because that's what you used. How do you get the film back to the newspaper to be developed and the pictures printed in time to make the edition, which went to bed at 11:30 at night. So there was a time constraint to get everything done, and I knew I wouldn't be able to get all the facts that I needed in that short amount of time. So my mother lived on Sunset Drive here in Gallipolis, about 2 doors down from Pierce McCready, who was a corporal in the state police. So I knew Pierce, and I also knew Corporal Boggs, Carl. And when I went up, both of them happened to be up there. So I talked with Carl, and he led us through to the bridge site. And I was able to get some basic information from him as to the time of the collapse and what he knew about people on the bridge, and were there survivors, and there had been some people injured that were taken back. And so I found a phone and called back to the city editor, told him what I had found out, and he said that he was going to try and get most of the facts of the disaster from the Point Pleasant side. And could I do human interest? Could I do eyewitness accounts? So I checked around in Kanawha and found Johnny Foster, who lived up there. His wife, Charlene, was standing at the kitchen window of their house and saw the bridge collapse, because their house If you look out the back window of their house, it faces the Kanawha River, comes right at it. So she was able to see the collapse, saw the bridge spiral down. I was able to interview her about the sights and the sounds, and put it in the paper, got it into the paper for the morning edition.
Is that the best account that you had gotten interviewing people, or did you interview any people that were driving up to it at that point?
No, not at that point. Everything was, of course, mass confusion right then, because I was here at about 7 o'clock. The accident occurred around 5, so it was a couple of hours after the accident. Most of the injured, or all the injured, of course, were gone. And the only thing that was left was basically rubble and wreckage. And of course the people in the area who lived there. And so that's who I had to work with, that plus the officials. But by that time they had determined that they were going to set up the command center on the West Virginia side in Point Pleasant. So the M.T. Epling Company boat was being used out in the water to try and get wreckage cleared, and also any survivors they could find. Right at that time, their primary job was looking for people who may still be alive and in the water, because it was night, it was dark, the river was moving, and they didn't know how many people were on the bridge. They didn't know how many cars went in the water. They didn't know where they were. And so their primary focus within those first few hours was finding any survivors who may still be in the water, or who may still be in the wreckage on the Ohio side. So they were going through the wreckage. My photographer went up on the ramp to the bridge on the Ohio side and set up his camera and took a picture of the semi-trucks and the cars and the debris lined up going down the bank toward the river. So that picture also was in the paper, and that picture also made the Associated Press Photograph of the Year for West Virginia that year. So,
did you cover any of the story in the days and weeks following?
I stayed up here for a couple of days, stayed at my mother's house, and tried to get as much information as I could. We did basically a team effort. It wasn't one person writing a particular story, but it was everybody calling information back into a reporter at the paper who compiled everything, put it all together. So we had a compilation report from both West Virginia and the Ohio side.
Did you know anybody that may have gone down on the bridge?
I knew quite a few people who were on the bridge and went down on the bridge. Paul Wedge and his wife from Point Pleasant died. Bus Lee from here in Gallipolis, he used to be a chauffeur for Mrs. McIntyre, for O.O. McIntyre's widow. When she would come to town, he would drive her Rolls Royce for her. And Bus lived on 3rd Avenue in Gallipolis, so I knew him fairly well. And there were some others that I can't remember right now.
You were 28 years old at the time. Today is the 45th anniversary of this tragedy. What are some of the things that have stuck with you for the past 45 years?
Well, for the first few years, you were quite concerned every time you drove across a bridge. You know, didn't matter how high the bridge was or how low, you wondered about the safety of the bridge, because of all the bridges I would have thought the 6th Street Bridge in Huntington would have fallen long before the Silver Bridge, or the Shadle Bridge across the Kanawha River. Both of those bridges seemed a whole lot less substantial than the Silver Bridge. I never considered the Silver Bridge as being unsafe, or falling. And so for a long time after that, every time you crossed a bridge, you thought about it. I wonder, when was this bridge inspected? So That was one of the things that stuck with me. Interestingly enough, in my later life, I became a re-inspector for State Farm Insurance on their national catastrophe team. So I traveled around the country following storms. A few years ago, right before I retired, I was on a storm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And while I was there, the I-35 bridge coming into Minneapolis fell into the Mississippi River. So I've been around 2 bridges that have fallen that nobody thought were going to fall into the river. And so I think about bridges.
Did anyone, kind of a side thing, any of the folklore of the Mothman or anything like that, had anything been written about that, or had you heard anything about that before or afterwards?
No. The Mothman stories, I cannot remember the timing before or after the bridge fell, as far as Mothman is concerned. But I never put a lot of credence in the Mothman stories. I thought that it would be found out to be a prank of some description eventually. It never has been. But I remember the Mothman stories. I remember what happened with it, but I don't remember that at all in association with the bridge disaster. At the time, until the movie, nobody made any association between the two, okay? As far as I know. But yeah, I do remember the Mothman stories and what was going on. A lady by the name of Heyer in Point Pleasant worked for the Athens Messenger. She was a reporter, and she really covered the Mothman story. She wrote about that a lot, and so I remember that. But like I say, I didn't put I never made any association at all to the bridge disaster until after the movie came out, and I think they stretched a point. So.
Any other remembrances you have that you can share with us?
No, well, I don't know, you probably already know this, but the Silver Bridge, when they built it, they welded a silver dollar across one of the crossbeams, and it was called the Silver Dollar Bridge, and later was shortened to Silver Bridge, and that's how it got its name, Silver Bridge. So I don't know if anybody's mentioned that or not, but that was one of the remembrance. Of course, Dr. Holzer here in Gallipolis was instrumental in having the bridge built because he had patients on both sides of the river. Now, and you have to remember the time, back in 1928, it was very difficult to get around and to get from side to side. There was no easy way to go from West Virginia to Ohio here at this point, and it would be by ferry boat. And so he was instrumental in getting the bridge built so he could take care of what patients he had on both sides of the river. That was the Gallipolis Association with the Silver Bridge.